Is it time to clean up your old traditional IRA? Hi, this is financial planner Sean Mullaney. Let's discuss. So in this video, I'm going to talk about cleaning up traditional IRAs and facilitating some tax planning and potential optimization. And this happens out there, right? Folks have traditional IRAs, and sometimes it could be a bit of a block to some good tax planning, namely the backdoor Roth IRA. So you need to do some sort of IRA cleanup. And I'm going to give you an example of this, right? So say you were working at a job, it had a 401k, great. You left that job in 2021 at a time when there was $70,000 all pre-tax in your 401k. Okay. You do a rollover at that time from the traditional 401k into a traditional IRA. Perfectly valid financial planning tactic. Great. It was worth $70,000 at that time. Okay. And you say, oh, look, I have a traditional IRA. Maybe I should just make annual contributions to it. Now, I make too much to deduct a contribution to a traditional IRA. I make too much to make a Roth contribution to an IRA, but I'll just do a non-deductible traditional IRA and I'll max that out for 2021, 2022. So that's $6,000 each year, $12,000 total of after-tax, non-deductible contributions to the traditional IRA. And you get to this point where you wake up, it's March 2024, and you're like, oh, look, my one and only traditional IRA is worth $100,000. Well, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having $100,000 in a traditional IRA. But it's not optimal from a tax perspective. If we're working and we're high income, there can be some less than optimal results. I see two main problems with this. The first problem I see is that this existing traditional IRA blocks your ability to do a so-called backdoor Roth IRA, right? You just can't do it the way the rules work, right? Not allowed. Well, I mean, you could technically do it, but it's highly tax inefficient, right? I've talked about that on the channel before. Second problem is this. Maybe you don't want to do a backdoor Roth, but you're thinking about your own retirement. Maybe that's 20, 30 years down the road, 40 years down the road. So you're going to start taking money out of this traditional IRA. It'll be worth a lot more, hopefully, then. And you have to apply the pro rata rule. And that $12,000 of basis we created, that value will be significantly eroded away by inflation. Right? IRA basis is okay, but it's an asset of diminishing value, right? It's often best used sooner rather than later, so inflation can't eat away at its value, right? So we got two problems here, but there are cleanup techniques available if we're still working and our current employer has a 401k or other plan that accepts IRA roll-ins, right? So workplace retirement plans are allowed to accept IRA roll-ins and often do, but they're not required to. So you got to go to your employer and say, hey, you got a 403B, 457, 401k, whatever it is. Do you guys accept IRA roll-ins? If they do, there could be a really good cleanup opportunity here. So what you could do, I've got a little 7-step cleanup process where you could start maybe doing the backdoor Roth IRA annually after you did this. Right, step one, right? Step one's sort of this interesting step. It is in that $100,000 traditional IRA, you take $12,000 and just a little extra, right? Remember, we have $12,000 of basis. That's where this number comes from. $12,000 and just a little extra, and you put it in something in what I'm referring to as mutual fund A. That is a money market fund. Mutual fund A, let's just make sure we understand that, is a money market fund, right? We don't want anything that's going to decline in value, okay? That's important to keep on the table here. So if we're thinking about this cleanup technique, we want to create what I refer to as a leave behind asset. You'll see why I call that a leave behind asset in a second. We take our IRA basis, the $6,000 plus the $6,000, these two non-deductible contributions, and we add just a little bit extra, right? Just to be extra careful. So we put $10 more. We invest that in like a money market account. It might generate some interest. Fine. We don't worry about that. We just don't want any diminution in value. Okay. Then the next thing we do is we just hive off the rest of that $100,000, almost $88,000 in this case, and we put that in a distinct asset. I don't particularly care what it is. Any asset will do. let's call that mutual fund B. We might have to hive it off into a second IRA. That's fine too. I don't care about that. Whatever we got to do just to isolate that, right? And I'll just call that mutual fund B for the time being. The next thing we do is we have to determine if the existing 401k plan provider at current job accepts roll-ins. Note that they don't have to. If they don't, we're done with our planning. We reallocate our traditional IRA. We're done with the planning. But let's assume they do. Then we move on to step 4. What we're going to do in step 4 is a so-called direct trustee-to-trustee transfer of mutual fund B into our existing job 401k. I'm just using 401k in this case. It could be another plan. Notice we left behind something. That's why I call it the leave behind asset. We left behind that money market fund of $12,000 and a little change. Interesting. Okay. But this is the big thing. And one of the big things I advocate when we think about retirement account to retirement account transfers is direct trustee to trustee transfers. We don't want to get a check if that money's just going back into another retirement account. If we do 60-day rule, we got to get that money in the destination retirement account within 60 days. Otherwise, we're at substantial risk for tax, penalties, not a good outcome, right? So I like doing a direct trustee to trustee transfer, which avoids that risk. Step 5 is we just double check that we have no other traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, or simple, none of those IRAs. Simple IRAs have special rules. You got to really think long and hard there. This planning is great to clean up this IRA, but it's not sufficient if we're trying to do something like a backdoor Roth in the future. We got to get all those traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, simple IRAs cleaned up. So we're going to just double check to make sure we have all our IRAs cleaned up. And after step 4, the only thing left is that leave behind asset in one traditional IRA. And it's just a tiny little bit more than our IRA basis. Step 6 is we're going to convert that money market fund, mutual fund A, to a Roth IRA. And then we invest the Roth IRA consistent with our investment objectives. Now, what's interesting, there's a couple things that's interesting here. One, this is what I refer to as the basis isolation backdoor Roth IRA. I did a whole blog post on that. I'll link to that in the description below. The only amount that's going to be taxable here, if we've done everything right, is the $10 that we just rounded up, plus any interest that's accrued, right? It's going to be a very small amount of tax. And we just did what I refer to as a basis isolation backdoor Roth IRA. And oh, by the way, we cleaned up the IRAs. We have no more traditional IRAs after this step. So now we can cook with gas with the backdoor Roth. We've cleaned up our traditional IRAs. But notice that leave behind asset. I don't think that leave behind asset should be in anything that's speculative that could lose significant value, really lose any value. That's why I like money market funds or just cash accounts if we can in our traditional IRA as our leave behind asset that gets converted to our Roth. The reason is a tax rule. It's not an investment issue. It's a tax issue. There's a tax rule that says that basis cannot go into my 401k, into your 401k. Basis doesn't travel from IRAs to 401ks. That's the tax rule. Same for IRAs to 403bs, IRAs to 457s. I don't make the rules. I just talk about them, right? And so what if mutual fund B, increased in value and mutual fund A was invested in something speculative and it went down in the stock market 10%? The way the rules work, we might have a impermissible transfer of basis in that example into a 401k. We don't want that, right? So the leave behind asset, we want it to be in something that ain't gonna fall, right? I mean, there's no guarantees in life, but money market funds generally stay at that $1 thing. So that's why I like money market or just cash. We don't want an investment loss in that leave behind asset. And what we've done in that step 6 is we've gotten $12,000 plus into a Roth IRA, the basis isolation backdoor Roth IRA. We barely paid any tax. We used the basis while the getting was good. We didn't let inflation eat away at that basis's value. That's great tax planning. And then last, step 7, we just need to make sure on December 31st, we don't have any other balances in traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, or simple IRAs, because a roll the other way into an IRA before New Year's Eve could make this planning highly inefficient, right? So we just want to be careful, do our diligence, make sure we don't have balances in traditional IRAs, SEP IRAs, or simple IRAs. This 7-step plan cleans up this hypothetical person's traditional IRA and now lets them do the backdoor Roth IRA going forward. Now, look, this is sophisticated planning, these IRA cleanup techniques. They often benefit from some advice from professional advisors. That said, not all professionals are fully familiar with these nuances, so you might want to get a second opinion. You want to do your own research. This video isn't advice for you, but it is an educational resource that could help you as you think about maybe cleaning up traditional IRAs to set up, one, the basis isolation backdoor Roth, and two, potential future backdoor Roth IRAs. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please mash that like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you next time.